Okay, so once again in this part of the world, so welcome. And I thank the IMF World Bank for inviting me once more here. The last time we also had one talk. I'm going to start with a little Sanskrit chant, which kind of, in a way, defines what the IMF and the World Bank are also involved in its own way. We'll look into this carefully after this. The chant is, I think many of you know this chant, if you are from India. The chant is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Shantu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukhavat Bhavet. Now, if you translate it, what it means is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. May the whole world be happy. Sarve Santu Niramaya. May there be no disease and suffering for humanity. Which of course is part of the WHO, World Health Organization. And Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. May we see everything auspicious. Ma Kaschit Dukhavat Bhavet. May there be no dukkha or sorrow in the world. I mean, it's such an universal, global concept, and it has nothing to do with divisions. It's an uniting factor. You see this? So the now the IMF and the World Bank always talk about alleviation of poverty worldwide, which is why your World Bank and international and so on. Now, there are two sides to poverty, which we have to look very carefully. One, of course, I'm not trying to advise you what to do, but I'm just looking at this carefully because it's important that people at the higher levels understand this concept, that poverty alleviation is not merely money. That's one kind of poverty. If you go back into into India's history, there were lots of people in India who actually embraced poverty in a religious way. Not that they want everybody to be poor, but embrace poverty in the sense, take the Buddha for instance. He gave up an entire kingdom so that he could be available to others, everybody. And so therefore, when you say, look at the Bible for instance. Jesus of course said, you know the story of the talents, somebody was given talents and he took it back. There are two people. One buried it under the tree and nothing grew out of it. The other took it and multiplied it and came back with a lot of money, and he said, this is the man who understands things. In spite of the fact that he said, lay treasures in your heart where thieves do not break in and steal. That is the other side of being rich. What I'm trying to say is there are two sides to this being happy and wealthy. One is creation of wealth outside, and the other is creation of wealth inside. And I think if both these coincide, then that part of the world is going to be happy. You can't have only one. So this is what I'm trying to talk to you about, that while we can be very, very wealthy, similar, we can also be very poor in our inner being, the psyche. And I think there has to be a balance between the two. Otherwise, one of the reasons probably why, although we want to eradicate poverty all over the world, we're not able to work is probably because of the missing link, which is the inner wealth. I think that's very important. It dictates what you do. And it has no geographical, the prayer which said Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah did not say Sarve Bharat or Sarve America or Sarve England. It's Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. And another sloka very close to this is Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May the whole world be happy. So you cannot divide the world into different, it has been divided, but you can't consider it from the inner essence to be different. Once I was in the Rishi Valley school. She's also from the Rishi Valley school. And Krishnamurti had come for a visit. So we had a chat with, he had a chat with the students. And then one of the students said, sir, if we follow what you're saying, we might be poor. And he said, then be poor. You know what I mean? Because poor is not to do with just wealth in the physical sense of the term. There are people, I'll give you a story. Imagine a scene where there's a man sitting under a tree. It happens in India mostly. Now it's less, but somebody sitting under a tree. You may call him a fakir. Now a fakir is one who has nothing. In fact, the Arabic definition of fakir, somebody said poverty is my pride. Now this is against the IMF theory, but I'm just saying, he said al-fakaru fakiri. Poverty is my pride. So imagine a fakir sitting under a tree with a begging bowl in his hand, with an ecstatic smile on his face, and there are hundreds of people lined up to see him and take his blessings. If you go to the parking lot, nowadays you can even count some Rolls Royces out there of the people who have come. So if they have everything, what are they looking for? From this man who has nothing? What can he give them? Important question. Why have they come? Of course, some have come take blessings for promotions. I don't have a child, please bless. That's incidental. In India, if you become a guru, people even call you at midnight and say, I had loose motions, not stopping. What to do? So, what are they seeking here? What are they looking for when they seem to have everything? So two things are clear. Even if they have all that, there's something missing. Happiness is missing. And therefore, this guy who has none of these things, he seems to have touched some kind of happiness and well-being. Important to note. So what I would say is, while in this context of the modern world, we cannot embrace poverty. I think those days are gone when people gave up everything and tried to find something. I know today there are people who claim to be sannyasins who have given up everything, but if you go and look at the accounts of the ashrams, they run into billions. It's not giving up anything. That time is gone. That time is over. Why don't we be honest and say we'll also have to earn money to live? Why can't we do that? So, while this happens, while we make money, while we work, we should not, what I'm trying to say is we should not forget the other dimension, and which is that you also need inner wealth and inner well-being. If you have inner wealth, compassion grows out of it. If compassion grows out of it, see, the world's problem is not that there is no wealth, but one of distribution. What can the IMF or World Bank do if there is no money available from other sources? They can't do anything. What they do practically is to take it and give it to the poor or to the needy. So distribution is the system. Now distribution always comes out of compassion. That's my understanding. Recently I had a chat with Dr. Doty from Stanford. What does he work on, Christine? What's that thing? Huh? Compassion and altruism is part of the Stanford University's academics now. So wherever I go to speak, I'm trying to spread this idea that this should also, compassion and distribution of goodness when you have to others should be part of our theme, of our principles. If that is there, in fact, even to feel that you should eradicate poverty doesn't come unless there is another element to it. If I say I have enough money, so who cares? Why should I give it to somebody else? It makes no sense. And we in this world are a unit. We are not different. Indians may be Indians because they're born there. Americans are Americans because they're born here. But globally, we are human beings. And because we are human beings, it's a vast network of human beings. Therefore, unless this changes, the attitude changes. One is the compassion that comes when I want to use a word which is very popular, not popular, which is very important in the Vedantic teachings. And that word is Purna, means completeness. Now when you say Purna, no geographical location or no little place can become Purna, full. It's complete. So it means the whole of the universe, not even this earth. So, and the Vedas said, Purnamada, that is complete. Purnamidam, this is complete. And finally, this completeness, this is the good news, that it is not only that which is complete, but this is also complete if we find out. Till now we are incomplete. It's because of the feeling of incompleteness that we keep working and trying to become complete. I find a job, I get married, I want to be complete. The completeness is in our true essence, part of that completeness from which we have come, and we haven't realized it. We haven't found it. So I would say that the process in this is to first realize, first, Loka Samasta Sukhinah Bhavantu, that this whole world is one and everyone has to be. It's from this concept that the sharing comes. If I say I want only for my country, there one should forget all partisanship, all political ideologies, because humanity is one. If humanity is one, is what the ancient teachings of the Hindu says, then it's being a Hindu is to be totally considering the whole world as one. There are no divisions here. Right? So this is what I'm trying to tell people, that the most important thing, apart from wealth in the outside world, is wealth in the inner. And what is this wealth in the inner? It's the understanding that deep within the heart of every human being, there is a spark of divinity. All other principles of equality have not succeeded in this world. Communism has experimented. There is no such equality based on economy. It's been a failure. Everybody has tested it out. But we are saying there is an equality innate in every human being, which is that we are all one. Loka samasta sukhinah bhavantu. Therefore, being human beings. And since the spark of the divine, I believe, is in every human being, there we are equal. Now, if this feeling is made to go deeper into our psyche, if you have this in our hearts, then I think the problem of distribution or redistribution of wealth, of other things, becomes kind of an automatic response to the system. This is the most important thing to note. If that is not there, all the distributory aspects will remain only as long as there is force. When the force is withdrawn, it will cease. Right? So, I would suggest, therefore, that all people, everyone who is involved in trying to bring good to others, first try to go deep within and spend 10-15 minutes every day centering yourself and trying to find the inner peace which is in each one of us. And the inner peace which is in each one of us doesn't distinguish between geographic locations, race, creed, nothing. This is my message to every human being, that please consider first that you're only one part of the world. The world is large. The world is made up of you, but it's much more than you or than me. And that deep inside every heart there is a spark of the divine, which is from where that compassion springs. We want to do good to others. Why would we want to do good to others? Because it doesn't do anything to us. Why would I want to give somebody shoes? He doesn't have shoes to wear. Well, I have shoes to wear, but I feel I should give one to him. Why? Because there is an innate compassion in every human being. It's been kind of neglected. If we can go into this and look into this question, then not only are we happy, the whole world is happy, and that is the most important thing for every human being to think. Otherwise, we spend small little selfish world of ours going around in circles without looking anywhere around us, which is not the way, at least in the future, for humanity to go forward. Things have to change. And we will have a question answer session. The last thing I would like to say before concluding this, I don't want to talk too much of Vedanta, Sanskrit and so on. I want to say is that peace is of the essence in this world. And peace comes not through need, but through fulfillment. And those who are full should be ready to share their fullness with others. Internal fullness and outward fullness, which is wealth. If this is deeply in everyone's heart, then there may be many more institutions coming up, apart from what we have here, which would make sure that everybody eats and everybody dresses and everybody has a place to live. You will not find the homeless on the streets. Thank you very much. Om Shanti Shanti.
Very thought-provoking opening statement, I would call it. So open to all questions. So please feel free. Just raise your hand. We'll try to give a mic to you. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Just go ahead. This mic is up. Testing. Oh, yeah, it's working. It's working.
Thank you for the talk about. My question to you, sir, is that following this path of trying to not being concerned about overtly wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Following a path which is that you are not really concerned about your wealth, which is external, but you're only looking at wealth which is internal. But not everybody views that, and we live in a social world. So that sometimes interferes with your social relationships.
I don't know if you got the point. I didn't say that we should all give up our wealth. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there was a time when this was possible for people to do. The times have changed. When I was with my teacher, Maheshwarnath Babaji, the first thing he told me was, go back, get into the world, live by honest labor, do your work, and at the same time try to spread the teachings. He said those days are gone when people walk out away from. He also told me, when you go out into this world, most of the people who would come and ask you questions and problems and how to solve them would all be people who have a family, who have to work to live, who are not sannyasins. Right? And what happens when you have a problem is that you go and ask a man who is unmarried, who is a sannyasin. He doesn't know anything about a married life or how to work in this world. He doesn't know. What will you ask him? And you might get wrong answers and think that they're right. I mean, this is setting aside the understanding. People expect all great saints to be omniscient, and therefore I don't believe it. I think all human beings are limited in their thoughts. So, if I know how to live, for instance, I get married, right? Suppose I am, but and the wife is the greatest agent to blow your ego off. You may be a big man, but when you go home, you're the same person. One cat. So, not that they're doing it deliberately, but they know where you stand, right? So, the other thing is, when you married, people come to me. There are many problems that we have. We have differences of opinion. I say, once you got married, please remember to start your day, your life, with saying, sometimes I may be wrong. Right? So what I'm trying to say is, in this situation, as we are, how to go about it, not to give up. Giving up is not possible because most giving up today, nowadays, is hypocrisy. So why don't we be truthful and do what we can? Right? There are people who are supposed to give up but fly only in first class. What do you do? Color has changed. It's saffron. Nothing is changed inside. I think it's better not to change this, but to change inside. If this is possible, then I think many things can be done. That's what I meant. Who is going to accept? Do the young people, our children, are they going to accept if you say give up everything? Not possible. We have changed. We have gone into a new millennium. So we need to work accordingly.
Uh, Other questions, please?
Just
Nice, because we'll get it into the...
Yeah. We've read your books. If you can spend some time talking about a couple of things from people you met, like J. Krishnamurti and others, it would be very interesting to hear it from you rather than just reading about that in your books. Thank you.
There is a complication, a little bit here, but I'll try my best to say this, which is that I have met people from such a wide gamut of spiritual beings that it's difficult to define anybody separately from this. So I'll tell you a few things. Okay, when I was 19, I ran away from home. When I talk to young people and say this, I say this is not an encouragement to run away from home. Because I went through a lot of difficulties. My parents suffered a lot because I'm the only son. And in India, you know how it is, only son, eldest son, he's supposed to take over your business. And get married and have children, that kind of thing. So I ran away. And I was fortunately for me, Maheshwaranath Babaji, who belonged to the Nath Sampradaya in name, but who actually didn't belong to any Sampradaya. He trained me up for 3.5 years, 3 years. Then off and on, I visited him often. So I had seen certain things in this person who didn't even have a pair of shoes. No banner, no YouTube, no blazing advertisements, no political affiliations. He was a man. And I lived with him and kind of absorbed the essence of the teachings. Then for the first time I realized, there was so much wisdom in this country. And from some experiences I learned that since his mind was peaceful, he spread peace wherever he went. Now, I don't know whether I should say this in one of my second books. I don't know how much time we have. Since you asked about various people. Once, when we were in Rishikesh, in the hills, some of the Goswamis, this Goswamis, this Vaishnavite orders, sannyasis, with all the namas, they came to see Babaji. And I called him Babaji, and said that we need help from you. He said, "Kya hai?" He said, there is a wild elephant which is around here. And it's already killed some sadhus and so on. Upper reaches of Rishikesh and Chilka and these areas, there still are elephants, reduced. So Babaji's first reaction as usual is, so मैं क्या करूँगा? What should I do? Go tell the forest department. They said, all that is okay, but please help. He said, okay, आप लोग जाइए. He said, you go. So that night, at midnight, he woke me up and said, let's go out. I said, Babaji, he said, come on, chalo. He said, Hindi, mostly between us. We went to the top of a rock between Nilkant and Rishikesh. It was full moon. And while there was a big rock, Babaji sat there and I sat near him. And where he was surrounded by trees. And at the back, across the valley, I saw a leopard walking. Leopards also have become less now. I'm sorry to say this, after the Delhi crowd started coming in, everything is gone down. So, there was a leopard going there. And it turned and looked at us, and my heart was in my mouth because I thought, what if it springs this way? It went off. And I was wondering, why are we sitting here? It's nothing, I never connected it with the elephant, And then, next to us, the bushes that were on the right side, these elephants, they can stand silently without moving a twig if they want. There was this rogue fellow standing there, the same guy. And he was wondering, what are these two brave fellows doing here in the full moonlight? Then suddenly he trumpeted and crashed through the trees. I said, my life is over. Really, I said, even though I had faith in Babaji, I said, this is the end. It came rushing through, and then just a few feet before the rock, it came to a grinding halt. Babaji didn't move, he was just sitting there with his knees down and his trunk up, and stopped. And he trumpeted. So I asked Babaji, what is this? Kya hai? He said, nothing. So he got up and he said, chalo mere saath. I said, I'm not coming. He said, chalo. We caught my hand. We went, it was here. We went near him. And Babaji went to the elephant's ears. I know it's unbelievable, but ears, and said, is this the way elephants behave? Killing innocent people. हिंदी में हाथी थोड़ी ऐसे करते हैं, सन्यासी लोगों को मार देते हैं, ऐसा नहीं करते हैं, शांत हो जाओ. Nothing, it was just there. And then he told me to go and do pranams to the elephant. That was the toughest thing. Because he said there is divinity in the form of an elephant. It can be in the form of an ant, it can be anything. So I went with closed eyes, pranams, and it touched my head with its trunk for a minute when I again thought I'm in danger, and then it got up and left. I think the man's heart was so full of peace that even animals kind of sensed this, that this is not a harmful man, he's not going to cause harm to me. It's one experience. Then I met many such people, great saints. I unfortunately couldn't meet Ramana Maharshi and so on. But I did meet a couple of people. And then lastly, Babaji told me, go and meet Krishnamurti. Connection, non-traditional, totally. So I went, and there was a freedom fighter called Achyut Patwardhan. I don't know if you've heard. He's from Maharashtra, from Ahmednagar. He was very close to Krishnamurti, but he was a man who started the Quit India movement with Aruna Asaf and was underground during the freedom movement because the British had a price on his head. He later on became part of the Krishnamurti because he knew Krishnamurti from young age. So I went to him and said that I wanted to meet Krishna. He said, luckily he's coming to India. So this is the headquarters in Madras, in Chennai, called Vasant Vihar. So I stayed on for a couple of days. He came, I met him. I was curious. So I got a 40-minute interview with him, alone. No light, no recording, no nothing. I wish I had something in my pocket. And then he talked to me. He was very curious. Where did you go to the Himalayas? What did you do? How was your Babaji? What did you do? I was surprised. I thought he's a man not interested in any of these things. And then he asked me, how long are you going to stay here? I said, I don't know. Sir, I'm always moving. I don't want to stay in one place. He was very happy. He said, that's nice. People come and say, oh, we'll spend the whole life with you, and then 3 months they're gone. So he said, stay on for a while. So I stayed on. 1 year passed. 2 years passed. 3 years passed. Every time he came, after that I left. Every time he came, I would go with him to the airport and thinking, now we should walk out. Enough. He would put his arms on my shoulder and say, so we'll meet next time when we come back. And so when I came back, I used to think, he said, next time, let me wait for another year. 3 years went by. What are one or two important things I'd like to say about a man, about a great being who has no ego in him, who is so humble. He was a well-known person. If I asked a question, he could have easily said, shut up. No. Once in one of the talks, he said that he said that throw all your holy books into the river, into the sea. They're of no value. Okay? The second day he said, in the middle of a talk, that, sir, I haven't read. Somebody asked him about an Upanishad. He said, sir, I haven't read any of these books. I was a little concerned. When he came back in the evening, I went up to him and I said, sir, now here is a contradiction. You say there is nothing in those books. Now the next day you say, I haven't read any of them. If you haven't read any of them, how can you say that there is nothing in them? Just tell me, please. So he could have easily said to me, okay, shut up, I don't want to. No, I would like the response. That's why I said that he was a genuine man. He said, but I don't need them. I said, sir, that is a different matter. You don't need them. But the thing is, when the public comes, they consider what you say like gospel truth. So if you say you don't need them, you should have said, I don't need them. Not that you don't need them. You know what I mean? And the response shows how the man had absolutely no ego, because he told me, you're right, sir. I must be careful with my words. Can you imagine this? You can be easily told, get out. So forget it. Who are you to ask? His response was, you're right. I think I must be more careful with what I say. These are some of the experiences I've had. I don't want to go into the whole thing because, I've written 2 books is full of these things. So maybe you can read them or go on YouTube. Nowadays we have YouTube, which has now become more important than iTube. So,
So are there other questions? I'm going to call in moderator privilege and take the third one and then pass it on. So you talked a bit about finding inner peace, spending 10 minutes of our busy day. I was actually telling Sri in the morning, just before this lecture, saying, I can't believe 9 months of 2018 have gone by. When I reflect back and think, what has happened? I don't know, life seems to be a blur. I'm sure many of us here relate to that feeling. What would you advise us to do? What should we do for that 10 minutes a day to seek inner peace?
not only 10 minutes a day, but 10 minutes a day is a good beginning. I think while we are caught in this tumultuous world, where we need to please people, we need to, how our life is, it's very kind of not transparent, because there are these niceties of societies and living with others and communication. Very often we see somebody and think, good God, this guy is coming again. But when he comes, you say, oh, hello, how are you? Good morning. See, we live a double life. And double life is a kind of schizophrenia. What is the meaning of schizophrenia? Schizo means divided, split, and phrenia is personality. So we all are, like split personalities. We are something here and something there. And so finally what happens, it catches up with us. We don't know which personality in this is the right one. Yeah, that is the basic problem. So I think while we are in this world doing various things, and laughing were required, and so on, I think in the army you're taught to laugh. That's not laughter. It's what you're trained to do. So we are split personalities. We are something here, something there. We have a big drama going on. Now what I'm trying to say is, at least 10 minutes in a day, when you sit down quiet, be yourself. And say, this is what I actually am. Not that I'm the Brahman and so on, that comes later. Like I don't have to pretend that I'm the Brahman. I'm sit here, I say, this is what I am. Let me sit quiet. Nobody is here now. I'm on my own. Look at myself as I am. That's one thing. The second is, because of this, we are always in some kind of a tension, expressed or not expressed. May not be exhibited, but it's there. So what do we do? There are ways and means in our ancient sciences by which the mind can be made quiet. And one of the easiest things to do is to sit down and watch your breath. As you see, the breath is the most important part of our life, but we give no attention to it. You can live without food for some time. You can live without water for some time. Without breath, you cannot live. Half a minute, 1 minute. So important. What do they say in Gujarati? Off ho gaya, when the breath is off. So, it's so important. So, can we, for a change, give a little attention to the breath, which is the most important, the key to our whole existence and system. So therefore the process, very simple process, it's also taught in Vipassana and so on in a different way. What you do is sit down quietly and say, now I'm myself. I don't have to pretend to anybody. And this is what I am. Okay. I close my eyes and I breathe in. When I breathe in, I give complete attention to my inhalation. And then I breathe out. When I breathe out, I go with the breath. I give complete attention to the breath. And in our yogic process, we also chant in our minds when we inhale the sound of hum. And when we breathe out, the sound of saw. So it becomes hum, saw. Hum, saw literally also means I am that, not just so limited. But it's also the sound that is important. It need not be loud. Just breathe in. So go with your breath. If you do this for about 5 to 10 minutes continuously, you'll see that your mind, which cannot remain in a blank because it doesn't like, but it's not engaged in anything external. So it gets engaged in something internal. And in that engagement, it quietens down. And you also gather a lot of energy from this. This is one way that one can work on. And look, it's non-denominational. Anybody can do it. There is no Muslim Hamsa and a Hindu Hamsa and a Christian Hamsa.
Back to you. Questions? Go ahead.
Hi, sir. On the topic of trying to be compassionate, I personally struggle a lot with so many of my personal choices or fulfilling desires are often selfish and they result in hurting of other people. And I spend a lot of time judging myself and judging other people also a huge amount for the actions they choose. And then I get confused thinking if I judge others and put them down, that also doesn't help. So what is the right way to act in this dilemma of trying to be compassionate towards others, but also recognizing that our decisions end up hurting others also, like consumption or whatever it may be.
Are you talking about those whom you're compassionate to? Are you hurting them? No. You're hurting somebody else.
So, practical example, let's take
Yeah,
the consumption
that's
of
what I'm-
plastic.
Plastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
like I myself consume things with plastic, and my household does a huge amount also. Both the extraction of plastic, like the whole supply chain, hurts so many both human and non-human beings. Yeah, like that. So I spend a lot of time, for example, putting my husband down or like passing judgment on my housemates, and it doesn't necessarily encourage them. They just feel guilty and they just won't tell me about it. Just in that little microcosm, it's not helpful. Even as an activist, I think sometimes we make other people feel guilty and it's not necessarily constructive. But I also, on the other side, think, okay, if I don't say it, then nothing will change. So I'm not sure how to behave appropriately.
Let me, having known you for some time, I think there are gentler ways of reminding people. As a practical difficulty, there are gentler ways of telling people not to use. First, but you should stop using. You shouldn't have a plastic bottle and then you tell him, hey, you're not. This doesn't work. So my understanding of the situation is I have to change first, completely. If I don't change, I can't find fault with somebody else. Not possible for me to do that. While I understand that plastic is bad, but I sometimes drink water from a plastic bottle, so I can't say anything. So I refrain from criticizing. Though I keep saying, well, it's a good thing to do that. Because if you have to say with full conviction, then what happens? They gave me water to drink. It's wonderful. I'm thirsty, I have to drink the water, right? If I say, oh, this is a plastic bottle, I don't. We have to, somewhere there has to be a balance. Or carry a copper flask with you so that whoever gives water, say, pour this into it. That doesn't stop the bottle from, at least you set an example to people. I've done that. I've got in my car or when I travel, I always have a glass bottle instead of a plastic bottle. You know what I mean? So I think here I can't give you any advice. Specific circumstances, you have to think about it and work it out. But just remember that you change. Without you changing, you can't change others.
Thank you so much for the talk. One question, if you can talk a little bit about how to overcome fear. There's a lot of fear in the system in terms of what will happen if I do this or what will happen if I don't do that. So how do we balance it?
In your daily life or in a spiritual way, which are you talking about? In your daily life or in personally, which one? No, you know, fear is part of the structure of the human psyche. You cannot completely get rid of fear. Physical fear of hurting yourself, fear of being in an accident, this is all normal. You cannot be free of it. Everybody has it at some point or the other. However, there is one fear which is of the mind. What will happen if I do like this tomorrow? That fear, this is a psychological fear. This can be handled by understanding that no matter you fear this or you don't fear this, things will work this way or that way. You have no control over that. When this happens, then you are not afraid of taking decisions. When you take a decision, please remember that it will be good for some and bad for some. It cannot be universally good for everyone. It doesn't work that way. You do business, you make profit. You're actually taking off a little profit from another person. But that person could have made also your profit. But you can't stop doing business because of that. You can't. So, also remember that you can get your things done better when you don't have fear than when you have fear. So understand the practical difficulties of always having fear. People who have done the best in the world are those who once decided, I'm not going to fear anything, I'm going forward. Definitely there will be problems. But then if you have to do and reach your goal, you have to go through it. So those who have been fearless have always won. And those who are always fearing little things have always lost. Okay. Now we have this thing, final fear, the fear of death. Everybody has a fear of death. Even if I say I'm not afraid of anything else, I have fear of death. And the reason why we fear of death, not so much because death is unknown, little bit only. The reason is that I'm afraid that when I die, I'll have to leave everything that I consider dear and near to me. That's the greatest fear of death. Not so much the unknown. Unknown we don't know, maybe, maybe not. Some people think they'll go to heaven, some people think they go to hell. So these are belief systems. We don't know. But the fear is that I will lose what I have. If somebody guarantees that when I die, I can take my house, my car, my family with me, who's afraid of death? So the 60-80% of the fear of death is to lose what I have, what I consider dear. This is my fear. So when you understand the fact that this is inevitable, there is no way out of this, then you have to make peace with death. I must tell you a story. The founder of the Sikh religion, Guru Nanak, did a lot of social work in Punjab, even before he became. And everybody used to help him to do his charity because he was an honest man. He was not making, collecting funds for his own purpose, but for other things, for others' good. No embezzlement. So, but there was one Nawab Sahab who never gave him any money for any work. So one day, now Guru Nanak sent him a small note saying, with a small sewing needle in it. You know the sewing needle? Which you used to sew clothes. And he wrote a note saying, Nawab Sahab, greetings and so on. I'm sending you this needle. You and I are going to die. I think I will die. You will die first and I will die next. That's what I feel. Please keep this sewing needle with you when you die. And when I die and come there, wherever, please hand it back to me. And the Nawab was in a dilemma. He said, he's a saint. Maybe he's right. I'll die first and he'll die last. And how to carry the needle and give it back to him? Because if I commit to a saint, it's a sin not to. So he came back and he said, but I can't take this needle and give it back to you there. He said, then will you take all your palace and your wealth there? You can't even take a little sewing needle with you. So think in this attitude. Think about this, that should be a peaceful going. And that happens only when we know that nothing really belongs to us. We like to think so, of course, but that's survival, life is like that. But I know I haven't fully answered your question, but this is food for thought. Maybe something will evolve out of it.
We have time for a couple more, so please feel free. If anybody else wants to ask a question alongside, after that, please feel free. It's got 1, 2, 3 hands, yeah?
Namaskar, Guruji. I have a personal question. This is, in spiritual practice, generally, personally, at least for me, I find these cycles of going up and down, where you feel really, and you start doing what you consider practices, right? And then it goes down again, even before you kind of have a sense of, that you're doing the right thing, that you're progressing, that you're doing something. Then suddenly your interest wanes. But again, it's up again. So how do we manage the highs and the lows in this practice so that we get to a middle ground? And then also, all of us have had experiences where we felt the divine in our lives, right? So something that should not happen happens, and something that is happening changes suddenly. So, but what are the markers for you to actually take confidence from that you're in the right path and how to move forward? So this is
There are two questions
yes,
actually.
yes.
So let me deal with the first question. Let me tell you, this is a thing to encourage you also. May I tell you that don't worry about it, because every human being who has tried to move forward in this path and taken up some practice has gone through ups and downs. So don't get discouraged. Even this person sitting here has gone. And that one has to overcome that is something which you have to determine yourself. Don't be let down because something is not. Carry on with it and it will come back. There is always a period when there is a lull. It's normal. And even the greatest of saints have had problems. So if you have a problem, it's not such a big thing. Just look at it this way. I had a chance to go to the Vatican last year, 2 years or 3 years ago. Can't remember. And I had a 10-minute meeting with the Pope. That was not, apart from that, the most interesting thing was, he said something very interesting which I felt very happy to hear. He said, every saint has a past, and therefore every sinner has a future. I thought that was a very hopeful message. So, when you feel you are down in the dumps, that's the time to feel positive and say, I'm not alone in this. Many people have fallen into it. But those who are fearless and ready have woken up from this and gone forward. Keep this conviction firm in your mind. Then I think you will go over all these roller coasters rides easily. Just that confidence has to be there. Now, can I tell you a little story again? Everybody has heard, at least, not only in India, but about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Many people consider him to be, So, there was a guy who used to come to meet him, who had other problems he had sorted out, but he had a problem of too much feelings of sex, which he could not control. I mean, he was like a wild guy in that part of the rest of the thing. He was okay, control that, this, that. Now, many times he thought he should discuss this with Sri Ramakrishna. Then he thought, this pure man, this Thakur, how to discuss this horrible thing with him, silly thing, not horrible, silly thing. He was putting it off. I am saying this so that you get encouraged. If Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and what about us, you and me? So he went to him one day when he was standing and looking out at the river quietly alone. He went to him and he said, Thakur, I have to, he said, let me blurt it out. It doesn't matter what. Maybe he'll slap me or something. It's okay. He said, Thakur, I have this problem. I can't control my lust. The response was so human and so clear that he burst into tears, because Thakur put his arms around his shoulders. And he said, you know what, even I passed through this phase. You know what I mean? So, the thing is not to give up and move. Okay. The second one you said, if I remember correctly, is, and what are the marks by which you say, okay, I'm progressing? Right? I would suggest that your progress is not measured by any visions that you have, but a couple of things. One is, when you sit down, look, no yogi can have as many visions as an LSD addict. So, although two are different, but still. So don't base your measurement of your movement into the spiritual path by, what visions I have, I don't have, no. If you have, good, but don't consider that as the criteria. And two, find out if your mind is improving. Like, am I less angry? Am I more peaceful? Do I feel for others? Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Gita. Do I have the welfare of all living beings in my heart? If this is happening and I am becoming a less selfish person, nobody can be totally unselfish, less selfish, then I am progressing on the path. 2. Third, when I sit down to meditate, am I able to sit for a length of time without being disturbed? Not outside disturbance, internal disturbance. If these three things are clicking and if they are together, then I think you're moving forward. Not only you, me, anybody. Cannot be that I can meditate for half an hour and enjoy the bliss of it, and the moment I come out I want to kill somebody. This doesn't work. Because anybody who goes into a spiritual state is no more the same person when you come out of it. You have changed. If the change is not taking place, see, technology. So if this change is not taking place, then we are not moving. Yeah.
We had 2 more questions, so let's get those.
One lady went away who
Yeah.
was sitting next to Deepa.
Thank you so much for the very nice talk. I'm into spirituality. Sometimes I get confused, like what is a greed? Because we all live in this materiality world.
What is a what?
Greed.
Greed. Huh.
Greed. So, like you also said, it's good to have some sort of fullness, external as well as internal, and all that. So every now and then, sometimes whether to aim for this, whether to do this, help somebody, or why not help someone else who's in a need? Do we help a relative? Do we, So there is always some sort of like Kerala is going on, this is going on, and there was a Guatemala. Those these are some few examples, but generally, people who are in the spiritual line, how do we know? Okay, this is a greed. Let's stop, or no, this is actually good. Go for it. Don't be slow down.
I'm not in a position to tell you how to choose, but I think anyone who is in pain and who is suffering, whatever possible way we can give them help, we should be able to do that. We can't discriminate. Okay? If somebody is suffering, the person is suffering. Now, that suffering may be also within your family, somebody is suffering. Now don't discriminate and say, oh, he's within my family, so I can't help this person. No. Human beings are same, inside or outside. So don't discriminate this way. When you can help, help. It may be here or it may be there. It doesn't matter. However much you want to say, oh, I'm not only my family, there are other things around. I think you start first by being kind to people around you and then expand to other people who are not part of you. I can't be a cruel husband or a cruel wife at home and talk of kindness and peace to my neighbor. It's not possible. So start at home, in your own circle. About whom to give, not to give, this is something which is completely up to an individual. I can't lay any blanket rule or law on this. Lastly, the very fact that you want to do it is good enough. Nurture that. Don't allow that to go.
Last question.
Thank you. So, in that same context that he was asking, I see that in this new generation, right? I'm hearing that little kids out of college who are really bright kids, they just don't want to get into all this corporate world, and they join an NGO or start an NGO or go teach for disabled kids for like 10,000
Right,
rupees.
right.
I'm hearing these things coming out a lot. You, in your travel, in your talks, do you see this mindset changing in the new generation?
This is something I'm really very happy about. I see that the new generation that is coming up is trying at least to think differently than the generation before that. It's a very good sign. Yeah. I see many young people who finish their college, who finish highly educated, come and say, I want to start a charitable, because I have had enough, but what about others? Having this, I think there is a palpable and tangible change, and that it's a good sign, not for a particular country, but for this whole world, globally. And it's in our hands to encourage them to do that, to move out, to think differently. I see that in fact, I see lots of young people gather together and they want to discuss matters. They want to find out how to go ahead. They say, why don't you ask your older generation? They said, no, they only want us to go into a profession. They're not interested. So it's a good trend, at least that they're thinking about it. The next step would be implementing it. And I think they deserve a lot of help from us. Not so much us, because I'm already so grey, but from people who are still dark haired, to help them to move forward in this. Because we shouldn't see now that kind of extreme poverty is gone. It's like everybody has a way of living. So now we should also try to share and move forward and go to higher things. It's a very good sign. So therefore, when tomorrow your son says, after going to Harvard and coming down and says, Sir, Papa, I want to do an NGO, don't discourage. You know, to be healed and to live a good life is to do what you love to do, rather than do what somebody is asking you to do. I know a doctor, who is now a doctor, who in her young age, somebody here might recognize the person, wanted to be a musician. She was encouraged to do medicine because everybody was medical. Yeah? She did medicine. She became a successful doctor and psychiatrist and so on. But she felt that somewhere deep inside something died, her interest in music. So when I saw her once, she had a piano in her house. She said, when nobody's around, I play the piano because that's where I enjoy my life. Otherwise, I'm a doctor, I do many good things. She looks after poor psychiatric patients and so on, which is a good thing, of course. But deep down, what she wanted to do is different from what she was made to do. Then you become a split personality. I wanted to run away to the Himalayas. If they had caught me and put me into construction business, which is what my father was doing, I would have gone mad. I would have done construction for some time and become very distractive at the end. I'm glad that this didn't happen.
Go ahead.
Sir.
One final question. I have this one?
Yes, sir.
A doubt in my mind. In fact, I don't know if you have watched this movie called is it Sliding Doors, or where there are two scenarios. You know, the lady misses the train. Scenario one happens. You take the train. A scenario. So as human beings, we come across multitude of scenarios. I mean, like ways, right? And we choose a path, right or wrong. The general tendency of human being is, oh, had I chosen that? In fact, I'm coming to your point, right? Your point you made, Had I chosen that, I would have been something different. Now I'm going into that, the point we all struggle with. So what's the answer to that? Because my thinking is that do not regret what you have not been able to. If you had chosen chosen the other path, maybe it would have gone a different route. You think that you would have been a multimillionaire or something else, but things have taken a different turn. So what's the philosophy behind this? I mean, this is very...
Let me tell you the basics of this from what you asked me. That the aim of life is not to become a multimillionaire first. You may be a multimillionaire, but you can still be unhappy. I'm not saying that you should regret for what you did. There's no point in living with regrets. But I'm saying that when you're really interested in something, it may be that now you can't do anything about it. If you have done it, you have done it. No point in regretting. But if you're really interested in something, it may be that you may not become a multimillionaire, but you will be a multimillionaire inside. I'm saying that wealth is not just to do with physical factors. Wealth is to do with inner satisfaction. And it is because there is no inner satisfaction that people regret. Oh, I wish I could have done that. It's a question of inner satisfaction. If you are satisfied really with what you have chosen, then that's absolutely fine. There is no problem here. Problem is where this comes. This is dissatisfaction.
But the example I quoted on the multimillionaire...
No, I know. I understand. What I mean, I guess you get my point. If you've done something, there's no point in regretting about it. You have to carry on. But even if you still get a chance to step back and go back to what you really love to do, you should do it. You may be losing something on one side, but you will be gaining real satisfaction inside. And without that real satisfaction, nothing matters really. That's what I'm trying. I'm happy today because I think I went and did what I wanted no matter what others thought about it. In fact, in my case, you just imagine, it was a tough decision to take. I'm not saying everybody, in my case. First, you're the only son, right? Your parents have a big construction business. Second, you're born into a background, a Muslim family. And you are trying to go to the Himalayas in search of something which they would consider Hindu. These are tough decisions to take. But then I was so fired by this that I didn't care. I said, let's do it. Yeah, in retrospect, I do feel that my parents, especially my mother, suffered. But then I came back and I think their suffering was mitigated by the fact that they've come back. And they thought that I would never get married or settle down. So it didn't matter who I married, they were happy. And finally we kind of settled down. And so, but if I had missed that calling at that point, even today I would have been, in Hindi you can say na tadapte hain, like I would have been tadapt. Thank you.
So I'm going to call up Harini, who's the current president of the Bank Fund India Club, to say a few words of thanks, and she'll have a couple of announcements as well. So I'm going to give her an opportunity to do that. But before I leave the podium, I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
I think, I hope for all of you attending today, it's actually been a nice relief from our back to work after Labor Day syndrome. So over to Harini.
Thank you, Deepa. As you see, I wish we had a larger audience to hear, from you. But it was such a thoughtful and provoking, and in so many things that you said, especially how you were so relevant to what we do in the World Bank. One is about the eradicating extreme poverty and the shared prosperity. These are the two goals, and you just so nailed down about what we're doing and what we have to do. Thank you so much again for coming back, and please do keep coming back, and we hope to have...
Well, if you call me, I'll come back next time.
That's so nice of you. And thank you, sir, for
May I
being here.
stop with Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace.